2016. If we could all please rise and pledge our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do a quick review of this evening's minutes. We have we actually have three meeting minutes to approve, 3 sets of meeting minutes to approve. Under invited guests, we have the Board of Library Trustees to discuss a draft plan moving forward. Under recognition.
One thing.
Okay, we have a couple things under recognition. Under manager reports, since the current town manager is on a well-deserved vacation abroad, I will be giving a couple of updates from the weekly report. Under discussion items, we have some street sign requests. We have the motion to appoint a records access officer. We have an application from Tri-Valley Front Runners for a road race on April 1st. We will have discussions on an easement deed from Upton Development Group. We will discuss the contract in front of us for the interim town manager. We will be reviewing the document for the Fire Department Management Study, RFP. We'll be discussing the public release of executive session meeting minutes, and then we'll be discussing 60 School Street. Under meeting look-ahead topics, I have a couple. Under new business, I think we may have one. Okay. And then we'll be going into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategies with respect to litigation, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board as declared by the chair. Have I missed anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Meeting minutes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would motion that we accept the meeting minutes of December 6, 2016 as submitted.
Second.
Please show there's unanimous action of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the meeting minutes of December 9, 2016 as submitted.
Second.
Please show there's unanimous action of the board.
And, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the meeting minutes of November 12, 2016 as submitted.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you. 3.0, invited guests, Board of Library Trustees. If you could, those present, if you could make your way up front.
John, we have a quorum, so do you want to call our meeting to order and then we can join?
Yes, I'll call the library trust meeting to order at about 3 minutes after, and I'm looking for somebody to take notes. No? Did someone take notes?
Yes, I can take notes.
All right.
Phil, you'll probably do after with Sandy's comments, we probably do a cut and paste with what Sandy writes as far as our discussion items. So if you want to just step forward and then just please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
All right, I'm John Robertson, Chair of the Board of Library Trustees. We have next to me was Matthew Baxtol, the Director of the Library, and Judith Katz, a member, and John Manuzzi, another member, and Neil Hamlet. I always remember him. And of course, Bill. You all know Bill Taylor.
You want to come up to the front? If you want to just to join in on the discussion, come up in the front, or whatever you'd like, wherever you'd like to sit. Thank you all very much. The board has been made aware of a memo sent from the trustees dated November 28th, 2016, and in that you requested that the trustees meet with the Board of Selectmen to keep the needs of the library in mind in the form of any sites. So, again, I will turn this over to you with respect to what you'd like to discuss this evening.
Well, I could just give a little summary and rundown to begin with, and then if there's any questions, we'll try to answer them. Basically, you know that the feasibility committee had studied the need of a library in the town of Upton. They found that there was a need, and that They had written a building program that indicated that that need would be a building of about 14,000 to 15,000 square feet. This would be sufficient to meet the needs of the town for the next 20 years. At present, of course, we have our library in the Knowlton Ristine building, which has about 3,000 square feet. So the need of the town is approximately 15,000 square feet. There is 3,000 available, and so we cannot serve all the different people in the town of Upton because of the lack of space. And so this was a subject that we discussed quite at length. We, of course, accepted the recommendation of the feasibility committee in that a library was not feasible in the town of Upton to meet the needs of the people. So we were talking about a vision for the future. At the same time, the finances were such that we had a little under $9,000 of the state money that was unspent. We contacted the state and I said, how do we give you this money back? And they said, essentially, that there's no history of giving money for planning and design back to the state, and therefore you should spend the money. And then further, as the state does, says, well, you can't spend it on anything. What you do is you got to spend it on the facility that you have. And you have
Basically a study.
the what?
A study on the facility that you have.
Planning and design.
Yeah.
And that you have to do it by the end of the fiscal year, which of course would be June 30th. So, of course, we were unhappy with not being able to meet the needs of the towns, but we talked about a vision for the future. And there were a couple of things there. One is a long-term and the other is a short-term. The short-term being up to 10 years and the long-term being beyond 10 years. So beyond 10 years, I'll just hit that because that's quicker. Beyond 10 years, we would probably need a site. This is one of the primary reasons that we were unable to apply for the construction grant because we had no place to put the library. We essentially designed the library, and then in the end there was no place to set it. So we gave up the construction grant. The construction grants come up probably about every 8 years. Prior to the construction grant, you have the planning and design grant. There'll be another round, hopefully, in, probably 6 or 7 years. So it'd be 10 years before we could do any construction. So in the short term, and I don't say this is a finished plan, but it's a plan we wanted to talk to you people about and get your reaction. And that is that we would change the focus of our library. Our library now tends to be typical of libraries, except we can't do a good job at anything if we try to do everything. So in the end, we would have to end up doing a few things well, and other things we would either eliminate or just almost symbolically have them. So in a vision, short-term vision, we said the first thing we would want to do is make the library, this is the library, not the whole Milton Rustine building, accessible to the handicapped. And second, we would shift the emphasis of the library from what you visualize as a library to a programs. This is, we would take the space we have and make it available so that the library personnel could have a variety of programs there. And third, we'd want to take good care of the children, and so on. I won't go down the whole list, but there's 5 or 6 things. And at the end, the things at the bottom of the list wouldn't get much attention at all. We did have a meeting with the architect and the owner's project manager to discuss, can you do anything for us? And we said, after taking the encumbered funds out, we have the less than 9,000. And they felt that they could do something for us. They could design a library that would meet our new needs. But we have to tell them what the new needs are. And that's one reason we're here tonight.
If I could just, and again, and just to recap, I think, you know, the feasibility study and the library trustees, I think they did do due diligence to try to find a piece of land and try to look at the correct location to basically to put a new library. Unfortunately, one was not available, is not available currently to do that. So I think, and again, I applaud the trustees for coming back and saying, okay, what's Plan B? You know,
That's it.
with this. And Plan B is, let's look at the existing library and see, number one, how do we make it ADA accessible, which is absolutely crucial, and then look at the overall structure and the dynamics of the library with respect to maybe turning it more into a, you know, resource area or just, you know, taking a look at the fundamental structure of a library. So again, I applaud the trustees for coming forward with that and do agree with the concept. So I'll open up to the board for any comments.
Okay, having served on the feasibility committee, I have a great sense, awareness as to what the situations are. I have a couple of points that, first of all, you're talking about accessing for American Disabilities Act with a lift. I don't know what the law would state if you remodel a building, if you have to make the total building compliant, or if you can only make one issue. The Historical Commission is public access, so we may need to make the whole building compliant, not just the library level. That's something to be looked into. Not that I'm adverse to it. The other question is the structural issue with the building itself. Those of us who've been around a while know that that building, the foundation, is going to need some form of an upgrade or some work, and that needs to be looked at, because there would be no point in investing in a building that 3 years from now, structurally, the ground level with the, let's call it the granite structure that's underneath, would not be sufficient. And again, I'm not adverse to investing money if the building can be rehabbed or refitted to comply. I'm all for it. I would prefer, if we're going to make an investment, how far do we go between putting a lift in or putting an elevator in and making the whole building accessible? What is the difference in cost and what's the margin of gain for that? It's probably very substantial. The other thing is, when you would put in an elevator, you would eliminate the problem with a lift. To be candid, we put a lift in other areas, and there's somebody in the room that well knows what I'm talking about, in one of our other public buildings, and that lift is really not as functional as it should be. It complies with the law, but it makes it very difficult for someone that's disabled in a large wheelchair to actually use the unit. It's still compliant with law, but, so my big concerns, and 10 years is a long time, it's a short time, but if we could rehab the structure of the building, maybe more than 10 years, because that will allow us to do more retrofitting in the library space and probably clean up the multi-levels that you're dealing with now. Because as I recall, you've got down to the base level, then you've got another level on the left that goes up for an office space, you've got another one in the back. Maybe the real design should be put in an elevator system and level the whole thing to one level and maximize your space and your productivity. It could also be that maybe, not for anything, but there may be much more space available, especially on that second floor, where I go back, and John, you remember where the school superintendent's office was.
I had an office up there. I was treasurer.
Yeah.
One room was mine.
Right, so the building has value to it if it's structurally sound. So before we go putting money in it, that would be the first question I'd ask.
Okay. No, great comment.
Can I just address part of that? Certainly, we want to ask our architect to give us a couple options. One restriction we do have that John mentioned is the planning money that we have can only be used to investigate library space. So I think if we wanted to expand the scope of the project to look at the entire building, we might need some of those funds to come from another source.
I think in all fairness though, Matthew, I think, if the architect is truly doing his or her job, that they would have to look at, structurally, is that building capable
Right.
of sustaining the changes needed within the library?
Right, so looking at
That is clearly part of the library scope.
Looking at the basement, exactly, we have on our scope of work, one of the things we definitely want them to do is look at, could we make the entire first floor one flat area? That would be ideal. When we start talking about the second floor, that's when, the trustees would love to do it. It's the state grant that we have to work around a little bit.
Well, Mayor?
Yes.
It's a town building, so if we invest money in the library itself, that's fine, and the town contributes its share to make the building whole. It would be foolish to just invest money because we have money to invest for the library and not touch the rest of the building.
Right.
If you're going to do the building, it should be compliant to all levels, especially for the American Disabilities Act. And it's my belief, if you drive one nail in there to change it, you have to be compliant.
And the architect will tell you by code what you're required to do.
Right.
He or she is obligated to tell you that. So again, that would be part of their analysis, their initial analysis of the building, and then look at, the ADA options as well as layout options with that. So,
We've already asked the architect to consider some of that, and while I don't think it's been pinned down entirely, the amount of money that you can spend on renovation is related to the total assessed value of the building. The total assessed value of the building is about $1 million. So if you go over I'm kind of loose with the numbers here, so don't hang me on them later on. But if you go over 300,000, then you have to do the whole building. If you do it for under 300,000, then it would be limited to that area. In our case, it would be the library area.
no, understood. Gary?
These two guys more or less summed it up. I think fixing it for the ADA, you have to do that. But I also do believe you guys kind of use the second floor, don't you, for some library functions, where that would kind of fall into the whole
Yeah.
architectural design?
There's some historical materials stored up there, and we do have at least one room that was vacated that we can use for a study room, but we do that being aware that it is not, it's even less ADA compliant than the main line.
So
We hesitate to send people, that's our last resort, to send people up there.
my curiosity was, you said you're going to change the future or the plan or the vision or something of the library, or where you're headed, or the direction, or the face,
Well,
I think is the word you used.
this is still in somewhat flux, but we wanted to come to you early enough, so we didn't want to come to you and say, here's a finished plan, and then you look at it and shake your head, and then we go back to ground zero. We thought it would be good to come in first. So, yes, we are considering the problems that we have. Libraries in general in Massachusetts are flourishing. Ours is on a general slow-down spiral. And part of it is that we just can't offer the things that other libraries can. So, as I mentioned earlier, we want to be able to get the handicapped people in, then we can have programs. But we can't have programs unless we can have the handicapped attend them. And talking mainly wheelchairs. But, so if we get the handicapped in, unfortunately, the ADA requirements say that you can't have a collection like we have. We would have to cut the collection about in half, because once you get a wheelchair in there, you have to widen the stacks, you have to lower them, and you have to have turnarounds. So we would lose roughly half of our collection, which is inadequate now. So the question is, maybe minimize the collection. I mean, we have the discussion, get rid of it, have a few symbolic ones or something more. But this is all still kind of in flux. Once we get a little further, then we will, primarily Matthew will write a building program essentially that he can give to the architect, and then the architect says, this is what will work in for you.
And I think that you're going to have the architect that you're dealing with now provide your proposal to do the services that you need to do under the scope of the grant, again, within the library. But I think in speaking with the architect, keeping it within the scope that they need to keep it with, but I would still ask them, I think that they need to look at it a little globally, So in doing that, once you get the proposal, if it doesn't fall within the budget that you have or the four corners of the scope that meet the grant, feel free to come back to us and we can possibly fund that added portion. But I think to do this correctly, I think we need to look at it, because as Bob said, it'd be foolish to look at changing the dynamics and changing the look of the library on the first floor without looking at the structural analysis of it, or looking at what is the threshold of costs of doing the job, and what else do we need to do it. And so reach out to the architect, give them a clear scope of work, and but keep the global aspect a little bit in mind on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose something. I don't think the architect is, and no deference intended whatsoever, has the competence to be able to do a structural engineering study of that building, and I think that's what we need before we proceed. We need to be assured that that building is structurally sound enough to carry the weight. We're talking about books and everything, and if we retrofit that building and modify that building in any way, I'll make this up, but we shift the weight load from one corner to another, who knows? And I would think that before we even proceed, maybe this board, and I don't know what the cost is, but maybe we should take a look. It's our building, to get an RFP for a structural engineer to go in there and take a look at that building once and for all, and let the town know what it's got and what its life is and what its usage could be. It's our property. We, at this time, we're very fortunate because most of the buildings this town owns are in very good shape, with the exception of some that we're trying to address, but that's one that sits in the center of our town, presently carries a library and a historical commission, and I think, Historical Society, sorry. At this point, I think maybe it's time that we as a town take a look at that building and say, okay, what have we really got here? And if an engineer, it could be negative. The engineer could go in and say, you really can't use that building anymore. And then we're, uh-oh. But it's a lot better than having a liability.
A lot of times, again, not knowing the architectural firm you're dealing with personally, but a lot of times the architectural firms do have structural engineers on staff. They have civil engineers, structural engineers, fire protection protection engineer on staff as part of their makeup. So if, and again, to reiterate what Bob said, I think it is crucial, and if, the architect that you're dealing with is struggling with either bringing in their own structural engineer or if there's a cost analysis, so just please come back, to us and we will assist, with doing this study process correctly.
Do it once, do it right.
Yep.
Okay, well, I agree that we should know whether that building is structurally sound, especially since the third floor seems to be coming down on the second floor. But
Well, if that's the case, we have a problem. Yeah.
yeah,
Case, we
But-
better put a lock on the door.
Chief, could you check that out tomorrow, please?
we could ask the architect, but we have so much money. Now, if he says that they can do it, but he needs another
As I s-
$2,000,
As I said, come back to us, and when you, I'm sure sometime in January you'll have the proposal.
well, we'll meet in early January.
Yeah, so then just come back with us when you have the proposal with respect to the scope of the proposal, or just forward it to us. Forward the scope, that's better yet. Once you get the proposal, forward it to the Board of Selectmen, let us look at it, and we will see if there's any way we can assist in any way.
That sounds good. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, you have to say, we're not going to do it for a few $1,000s. That would be...
No, but like I said, we want to do this correctly. We don't want to just throw $9,000 away for nothing, we want to do.
But we only have a certain time to spend that money. That's the problem.
No, I understand. So,
not a problem.
like I said, in January, I'm expecting you'll probably get the proposal sometime in January. Just forward it to us. We'll probably be meeting twice in January, so we can act on it accordingly then. All right?
All right.
Thank you all very much.
But
Yes.
before we go, I mentioned it at the beginning, but I'll mention it at the end. One of the most frustrating things we had was finding a site. I think, Bob, you could testify to that. And we would appreciate it if somehow during the interim that the town could find a site that we could have. Perhaps a destination site, because we found it very hard or difficult to find a place near the center of town, and we were reluctant to put it out in the middle of the woods, the library, but if it was a destination site where you could have the Council of Aging Senior Center, you could have a recreation center. I don't know about a graveyard, but we could have a number of multiple uses out there, and then people would get to, comfortable with going out there.
Nope, understood. We're always keeping our eyes open for any opportunities that may come the town's way that would be in the best interest of the town. So we hear you, we absolutely will.
Appreciate it.
Curious.
Yes.
A citizen of Upton, can someone bring legal action against the non-accessibility in a building here in town? Can they bring legal action because they don't have access?
We are grandfathered in that site that it's a pre-existing non-conforming, which means we have had it like that since the Disability Act. But should we, again, to my point, modify it in any way, we need to be compliant through the whole building. And we've had that with every building. This building is a perfect example. It existed for years and was non-compliant, but the minute we did it over, it had to be 100% ADA compliant.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn the... Second. Moved and seconded. Any lengthy discussion on the subject? No? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So voted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us come in.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, 4.0, recognition. Selectman Doherty.
Last Thursday afternoon, the Upton Fire and EMS Association won first place in their peanut butter challenge, which donates peanut butter to a foreign country. I'd just like to congratulate them on their first place victory.
Thank you. Congratulations, Upton Fire and EMS. Selectman Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I have the pleasure, and our town clerk's here, so I'm going to ask her to be recognized as well. For the second time in the last 5 years, the town of Upton has won the Senator Louis Bertinazi Award. And for those of you that have been around a while, remember Senator Bertinazi. He represented Upton for a while, but for the last part of his term represented the greater Milford area. And he established a voting award for the towns that have the largest turnout for vote. And this year, Upton, and again, I'll let Kelly do this, but the town of Upton is going to receive a plaque because in 2011-12, we had the highest voting turnout. And again, for 2015-16, we have again been awarded for a high turnout recognizing citizenship. We'd love it to be over 50%, but that's not always reality in today's world. And 37.9%?
Correct.
Correct. So to the town clerk, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to her because she runs the elections department. So would you like to add something to that?
Add anything to that?
I would just like to thank the citizens of the voters of Upton to come out, that they came out and participated in the election process and allowed us to get this award. Senator Bertinazi told me that this is the second time since he's had it, that the second time that we've won this. So it comes with a $1,000 grant that I can use to help the election process even more. And we will have a huge banner that he's in the process of getting made, and he looks forward to coming on January 17th to present it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank the voters.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, under manager's report, I'll just read highlight a couple of bullet items that the town manager identified in her weekly report of last week. The green community, and Bill is here, will begin shortly the projects that were approved for the second year of the state grant funding. These projects include the energy management system installation at both the police and fire station and a weatherization project at the wastewater treatment plant. So again, using grant money well, and I know these energy management systems at the police and fire will come in very handy and hopefully save us some money.
Those projects, which are being managed by Guardian Energy, we're also doing lighting upgrades at the police and fire stations with grant money.
Fantastic. It's always great to use the state money for our improvements.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. With respect to 14 North Main Street, the receiver has started work on 14 North Main Street with respect to cleaning up that area. The receiver has to get authority to move the current RV, and then we'll work with the court to close out that project. So work is progressing on 14 North Main, not quite done yet. With respect to relocating the RV, they are working on that. And just a reminder, where Christmas and New Year's both fall on a Sunday, that the town offices will be closed on Monday for both weeks in observance. So thank you very much for that. Any comments, questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Under discussion item 6.1, street sign requests. In your packet, we've had requests from Cider Mill Lane on a speed reduction and speed posting on that. And we've asked the chief to do a study or take a look at Cider Mill Lane with respect to that. The chief is with us this evening. He has given us, dated December 15, 2016, an analysis with his findings and his recommendation. With that, I will turn it over to the chief for any comments he may have.
Hi, good evening. Just a quick recap of the study. As you know, we added access to Kiwanis Beach to the recreation facility from Cider Mill Lane, and that was part of what was behind some of the requests. We took a look at the speed zoning, and now under the Act Modernizing Municipal Finance in Government, what the state has added a couple of sections that allows towns to do a couple of things. One is reduce their speed zoning in business districts, thickly settled business districts, from 30 to 25 across the community. Some communities have done that. But it also allows you to create safety zones around parks, hospitals, schools, different areas where there's vulnerable population. circulation as far as pedestrians, bicyclists, and so forth. So with that in mind, we took a look at Kiwanis Beach, which is already a 20-mile-an-hour zone, and we did some speed zoning and decided it was prudent to create a safety zone around the Kiwanis Beach facility, and that includes Kiwanis Beach Road and Cider Mill Lane, to reduce that to a 20-mile-an-hour zone and post safety zone signs, which you should have a copy in your packet of the safety zone sign. So my recommendation to the board is one, that they accept the provisions of Section 194 of Chapter 219 of the Acts of 2016, allowing the town to establish regulatory 20-mile-an-hour safety zone. And upon acceptance, I recommend that the board designate Kiwanis Beach Road and Cider Mill Lane as 20-mile-per-hour safety zones.
Okay. Chief, thank you for your very detailed analysis and recommendations and review. So again, this would be, I'll open up for discussion, but then this would be a two-motion act that this board would take. I'll turn it over to Selectman Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comment. This is the second review, actually, and this has come before us before, and the chief went back and did a further analysis, and I would always go with the chief's recommendation based upon past performances.
No comment either, ready to vote.
Okay, and again, this would be a motion where we would accept Section 194, Chapter 219 of the Acts of 2016, allowing the town to establish a regulatory 20-mile-an-hour safety zone, and then the posting of the sign accordingly. So I would open it up for a motion.
I'm going to repeat you. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board accept Section 194, Chapter 219, the Acts of 2016, to establish regulatory 20-mile-per-hour safety zones within the town of Upton.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board designate Kiwanis Beach Road and Cider Mill Lane as 20-mile-per-hour safety zones.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, very much. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you.
Just to address a couple of other issues as far as signs, there were requests for 2 or 3 other signs on Cider Mill. I've recommended that we do not do that. We just go with the safety zone signs. Also, there was a separate request for Prospect Street for a 30-mile-an-hour zone. We are not recommending that at this time. The DPW director and I are going to go through the speed zones and sign in town and take a look at how they were established and make sure they were established within the law, and probably come back in front of the board at a later date to discuss some of those items.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. So we'll take no action on this at this time. Thank you. Okay. Item 6.2, motion to appoint a records access officer. There is a state public record law that will be coming into effect that requires certain towns and municipalities to appoint a records access officer to manage requests for public records. With that said, we have 2 recommendations for this evening for such staffing, which would be Chief Bradley and the town clerk, Kelly McElrath, to be the records access officers for the town. So I would open up to the board for any discussion.
No comment. It's common sense. You people handle more records than anyone else in town, so it's, and you know the compliance to the
Yeah, just
law.
as some background, the law has changed effective January 1st. It'll be a little more complicated. Some of the fees have changed, the way that we log in requests and respond to requests and extensions. So I think it's prudent that myself and the town clerk be named to that position, because we're most involved in the records requests.
Understood. Gentlemen.
Chairman, if you wish, I would motion effective immediately that Kelly McElrath and Chief Bradley be appointed as records access officers for the town of Upton to a term to expire May 2017.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you.
Want me to stay for the next item as well?
Under 6.3, we have a request from Matthew Kellogg from Tri-Valley Front Runners for a road race that will occur on Saturday, April 1st, 2017, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I believe we received all the signatures and all the approvals on that, and I would open up the board for any discussion.
Nope.
Chief wanted to make
Chief, any comment?
This is an annual event. We work very closely with the Tri-Valley Frontrunners. They're an excellent organization, and they'll certainly do a great job, as always, so I have no issues. We'll work with them as we get closer to the race date.
Thank you for that. Will entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board authorize Tri-Valley Front Runners to have a road race on April 1st, 2017, to be a time from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you. Under 6.4, we have discussions on an easement deed with respect to the Upton Development Group for the wastewater treatment plant. As part of the closure of the current landfill that the Upton Development Group is undertaking, there is a section of pipe that extends approximately 18 feet from the town's boundary that is on the Upton Development Group land. So we are requesting an easement from the Upton Development Group so that we could deal with any issues with respect to that pipe if one would occur. We have in front of us a map of that proposed easement area, plus we also have easement agreement that has been reviewed by town council and is ready for our action or approval or further discussion this evening. So with that said, Joe, I would open up to the board for any comments.
Only for clarification that this is an issue, if I may, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. This is an issue where the town of Upton, at the time the sewer treatment plant was put in, the land that's owned by the Upton Development Group, we actually have an outflow that flows through that land. And to be compliant, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has asked the town to enter into an agreement, which Upton Development Group has agreed to make for total compliance, so that our easement gives us the authorization to have that water outflow from the sewer treatment plant, which basically goes into the West River, but it flows through there. So we will have easement and we're compliant with law. And the Upton Development Group is in agreement with that.
No comments. 18 feet, I think.
18 feet of pipe.
Mr. Chairman, I would motion that the board enter into the easement agreement with the Upton Development Group effective this evening with our signature on the closed document.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you. Under 6.5, motion to approve the contract with the interim town manager. At this time, I would ask Bob Reed if he would like to come up to the table, please. Again, for those who may or may not know Bob, the board interviewed Bob along with another individual, I think a couple of weeks ago, and with respect to the decision, we found that Bob would be a great candidate with respect to the being the interim town manager starting actually December 28th, and ending on or about, I think it was May or June. May or June, so at the time permit. So I've been in contact with Bob. We have an employment agreement in front of us that Bob has reviewed and this board has reviewed, and I believe we're ready to sign this evening. And before we sign it, is there anything you'd like to say, Bob?
Only that I'm very thankful to the board for this appointment. I feel very privileged to work for the town. I'm looking forward to it, to do my best to help the board and the town with a smooth transition.
Great. I will open up to any members.
I want to compliment you. First of all, you have a great deal of experience, and in the dialogue that we've had to date, you certainly grasp what the needs are, having done this before. So I think this is going to be a great relationship.
Look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
I agree also. So with that said, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we enter an employment agreement between the town of Upton and Robert Reed as acting town manager.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board.
Congratulations.
That was quick.
We won't hold that against you, Bob.
Yep. For clarification, he is a Worcester guy, so have to be honest. I heard that.
Okay, item 6.6. As we've had meetings, and one of my colleagues have had meetings with the fire EMS department, past meetings, we committed that we would look at a management study for the Upton Fire and EMS Department. We have a draft of a request for proposal with respect to that study in front of us. I would open up to the board for comments. Selectman Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, after having a great deal of dialogue on this, this satisfies what we want. I have a couple of changes I'd like to recommend that the board take a look at.
Yes.
On page 3, paragraph 2, the last comment that says seek funding from town meeting, I'd like to strike that because that would delay us in enacting this until June or later.
Yes.
Page 3, the end of paragraph 2, the last sentence. And then also on page 6, under the technical proposal and scope of work, under I, it says hold meetings with fire chief, town manager, and department officers. I'd like to strike officers to all personnel and enclose all personnel instead of just officers, as well as with the, the stakeholders and others that are cited here. And those are my only recommended changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Gary?
The only thing I would like to add is on section 5 on page 7 is maybe all the citizens somehow when they talk about stakeholders. They only talk about schools and Millhouse. I would like to have every citizen kind of have a voice in that area. I'm sure you would want to word that.
All citizens.
Whether that would be under public meetings or...
Okay. So we'll include all citizens with respect to stakeholders. Identification. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
And the only other, again, the obvious is just filling in the blanks with respective dates, just amending the header and footer on this document accordingly. And just like on page 4, under the dates, the second bullet, just changing it'll be 2017, just take the 6 out. So just some little grammatical things, but other than that, I think I have no problem with the changes made.
Thank you.
So I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to motion that the board initiate the request for proposals for a management study for the fire EMS department with the recommended changes this evening and authorize the chairman to enter in the dates as he sees fit where needed.
Second.
You show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you. Okay, under 6.7, this was a request, I think, Selectman Fleming brought it up, and I think we all concur with respect to public release of executive session meeting minutes of November 7th, 2016. You have those in your packets, so I would seek any discussion on that.
Mr. Chairman, my rationale for this is where we normally release executive sessions annually at a given meeting, to release these to eliminate and create transparency. There's been a lot of misinterpretation as what may or may not have occurred, so therefore I would like to make it public and clarify the issue.
I'd agree with what he says.
Okay, very good. I would entertain a motion.
No, go ahead. No.
Mr. Chairman, I would like the motion that the Board of Selectmen release the executive session minutes of November 7, 2016.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you very much. All right, under 6.8, with respect to 60 School Street, 60 School Street is, for those who may not remember, it was a building that, a house that the town of Upton had to do some intervening with respect to cleaning up that facility. The town has invested money with respect to the cleanup of that property. The town of Upton, through its council, did go to Housing Court to seek approval with respect to applying a lien on that property so the town could reincur costs associated with the cleanup of that property. And we were informed that the Housing Court did grant the town's motion to approve the lien in the amount of $29,527.74. In front of us is a statement of claim that if we approve it tonight, we will execute this evening. Comments, discussions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board execute statement of claim on the document dated before us this evening.
Second.
Please show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you. That is all I have for the discussion items. Under meeting look-ahead topics, a couple of items that I have. We have a request from a landowner on Orchard Street with a specific request that we'll be addressing in January. We also have in front of us a draft copy of the pipeline resolution that this board, the town meeting and this board voted on. So we have three issues that we'll be discussing with respect to that resolution, with respect to the resolution itself. Then we have a draft of the possibly rescinding any property access. Then we have an email from town council with respect to intervenor status and what that entails. So you have, I believe you all have those documentations, so we'll be discussing that at an upcoming meeting, probably the first meeting in January.
What was the first one, Orchard Street?
The Orchard Street request, yeah, just a request that we'll be discussing that sometime
Okay, I
in
know
January.
that, so.
Actually, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not Orchard Street.
Marijuana, please? The marijuana.
Oh, got it.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yes.
That is, okay.
Yes, yes. I
Yes,
had to
thank
think
you.
there for a minute, yes.
That's why I was thrown.
Okay, did I miss anything under meeting look-ahead topics? Bob?
Mr. Chairman, I have something to bring forward.
Okay, under meeting look-ahead topics, anything?
One of the citizens, Scott Henderson, reached out to me, would like to sit down and talk about his AED program, ideas he has with the town.
Okay, we will invite Scott Henderson to an upcoming meeting in January. We'll reach out to him and to seek his request. We could probably post it accordingly on the agenda. Okay, Bob?
Mr. Chairman, I've been approached and I notified the board that this would be on. We had no discussion, but I've been approached for a person who's interested in selling Holy Angels Church. As you know, the town of Upton had looked at that 4 years ago. We did not come to agreement with the diocese. We looked at the rectory and the church as a total purchase. That did not come to fruition. The rectory was then sold, and then the church itself was sold. The person that owns that property is interested in selling it. It is a structure that sits within the center of our downtown area and could have value to the town. So based upon that, I would like to ask the board if they are in agreement, and I would be willing to do it, to pursue with the owner to come back with some monetary figure for the board to have further discussion on the acquisition of this land.
Gary?
Sounds good with me?
I've always been a proponent of, again, where Holy Angels is right across the street here. It's a vital part of the center of our town. We own the property just to the left of it. It's part of the GAR, where the GAR Hall used to be. I think it's crucial with respect to downtown development, and it's always best, and I don't mean by hoarding land or hoarding buildings, but again, where it's crucial to the downtown development and location is everything. I am a strong proponent of that.
As we say, it's always better to have control of your destiny than let someone else.
Understood.
And we lived that with one once before. Need I mention which property that is?
Understood. Okay, any other new business?
That's all I have.
No, sir.
Okay. Before we go into an executive session, I will open it up for any comments. Seeing none, hearing none, I will, before I close the meeting, I just want to publicly say, and I apologize to the town manager personally, that at the last meeting when we were here, I forgot, because she was going to be on vacation, that the last meeting was going to be her last televised meeting. And again, I wish I had the opportunity to tell her at that time, in front of the TV audience, how few or many they may be, that we are very thankful for the job that she did in the 6 to 7 years that she was here. And as I told her, it is truly my belief that she left this town in better condition than the way she found it. She did a lot for this town, and I want to thank her very much for her true dedicated service. Wish her well in the town of Wellesley, and thank her greatly on behalf of the citizens and this board. So, thank you, Blythe.
If I may add to that, one of the difficulties, I won't use the word tragedy, one of the difficulties of holding a position like that is people live with assumptions, and they really don't have any real understanding of what that job entails. And I know we have a gentleman in this audience that works with her quite consistently on finance matters, and I know he's expressed the ultimate respect. Am I correct, sir? Yes, and the things she's done, we're talking about 70-hour work weeks, and our financial position is better, our processes are better, our systems are better, and the staff has been enhanced because she's been there for them, where an elected Board of Selectmen just can't be there. So she's been a great asset to this town. You know, she was the first one that had to step into that role, and it's always difficult when people have to accept change, and they go from the days of picking up the phone and calling a selectman and expecting response, and then they call an office, and they sometimes feel they're not getting treated the same way. Well, when you go professional, sometimes structure and processes do have to change, and that's maybe the way of the times, but it is what it is. But this town is a far better place because she took that role. That's for darn sure. And anyone that works in this building or works in town government is well aware of that. So, Blythe, thank you very much. We're going to miss you, and it's our intent at some point we will get together with her when it's legal and she is no longer the town manager, and we can go to dinner and have a good time. So, thank you, Blythe.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had to say that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, anything else? Yeah. All right, so with that said, seeing nothing, we will enter an executive, the board will enter an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategies with respect to litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board as declared by the chair. Jim Brochu, aye?
Gary Doherty, aye.
Robert Fleming, aye.
We are